I picked.
Tell you what you don't do.
Yes.
You don't send a message to the writer of the other movie on Reddit saying, fuck you.
Yeah, that's what you don't do. Yes, because that's mean and is creating horrible karma for you.
It's
and we
terrible.
don't want to have horrible karma. This person watched a movie on Netflix and it bore shocking similarities to a movie that they had pitched in the past. Now, I don't know if they pitched this to Netflix. I'm not really talking about the concept of the original, the actualities of the facts about this original post, but it's what do you do when you're out in the world and you suddenly see a movie or you see a project out in the world. You would have this experience on Reddit with a not very nice saying, you know, oh, there was a project that was very similar and now this one is done. Or damn, that's the movie that I was writing, or that's the movie that I picked.
Tell you what you don't do.
Yes.
You don't send a message to the writer of the other movie on Reddit saying, fuck you.
Yeah, that's what you don't do. Yes, because that's mean and is creating horrible karma for you.
It's
and we don't want to have horrible karma. No. It's okay to be upset about something. It's not to say you can't have your feelings of immense frustration, because we've had them as well. You know, oh, we were prepping a pitch. We had an idea. Oh, there it is.
It happens. After we sold Winter's Night, I distinctly remember going into at least 2 rooms, if not 3, whereby people told us that our script killed their project. Congratulations and fuck you at the same time.
Yeah. Well, there was one, wasn't there? So there were 2 examples. One was around the same time, there was a... So for those of you who don't know, Winter's Night is the origin story of Santa Claus, told as a Viking action adventure. It's the script that me and Ben broke in with in 2014. And in the previous year, in 2013, on the blacklist, there was a script called Nicholas, which was a historic movie about Nicholas of Myra, the literal Saint Nicholas.
Sure.
And it started to gain some traction. And yes, we were in a room and we were talking with someone. I think it was a Hollywood gang, actually. I want to say it was a Hollywood gang. And they were saying, oh, we were literally in this office with the person when the deadline of your sale came through. And he was just like, oh, no, you know. And then the other was, I'm getting an echo. Are you getting an echo?
I'm getting an echo from you. But I'm not really sure why.
We've had this before.
But it's not too bad.
No, it's bad for me. Give me a second. Hold on while I just sort my... Right.
Basically, I'm going to continue Jake's story. We were at Universal with an exec at Universal, and they said, you know, like a month before your script, or maybe it was a year before, but it was very soon.
I think it was a few months.
I think it was a few months before. Someone else, a much bigger writer than we were at the time, had come in to pitch them a movie based on the same public domain book that we used as inspiration in ours. So it was The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum. Yeah. And this executive was the one who had been bidding on our scripts when it was on at the market. Had lost it to Sony. But he was like, I didn't even bid on that one.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, point being, it happens to absolutely everyone.
Everybody.
And it can happen both ways. It absolutely can, as we're just talking about right now. When we were writing, we've got a script out in the world at the moment called 40 Thieves, a project at what was 20th Century Fox at the time with Sean Levy directing, called 40 Thieves. And we were like, shit, it's happened at the same time.
Yeah, that was back then.
That was back then.
And now, when we just were, like a week before we were going to go out with it, Disney announces a reimagining of Arabian Nights.
Absolutely right.
It happened. And in fact, the 40 Thieves script is what this person on Reddit told us to go fuck ourselves over. But the reality is, like, you'll never know what's out in the market. You hope that your agents help with that. It's part of why we tell our agents what we're working on, or at least try to, because if there's things that have just sold that haven't been in the news, because let me tell you, the news takes a long time most of the time
does.
to get there. Sometimes a year. Projects will have been sold a year ago and it will only just get announced.
Yeah. Typically, we found that business affairs takes about 3 to 4 months before a deal is closed. So when you're reading this today, it's old news. And then if it's a spec, well, that spec was started years ago as well. You know, it's like there's this whole thing. Now, obviously, the aspects that we were talking about right now are public domain ideas. So again, it's a space me and Ben have played a lot in the past. There's nothing you can do about that. There's just nothing you can do about public domain stuff. I mean, I've been working on a book for a little while. Well, the movie Spirited that just came out on Apple plays in a similar space. Not exactly, but a similar space. And I was just like, but whatever. You just go, well, mine's different, whatever, you know. But public domain stuff, you're never gonna have control over that. Now, when there is an idea that's uniquely yours, you have to remember this as well, that if you haven't exposed that idea to anyone else, you know, you can't copyright an idea.
You can't. And there's really no such thing as a truly original idea. I mean, that's the thing, is even you think that you're the only one who's ever thought of this amazing, wonderful, beautiful idea. And maybe your version is unique to yourself because you come to it with your own experiences. But someone else has thought of that same idea somewhere, maybe even at the exact same time. It just, there's only so many. There's only, you know, and there's only so many stories to be told. And the reality is that you can look at a story and go, well, but I was going to do the same type of a movie about the 40 Thieves. Well, what kind of movie are you doing? Or I was going to do a movie about a detective who fell in love with the girl that he was investigating for. Well, that could be a million things. Yeah. The reality is, if it is too close, even if it's so different and yet still lives in the same world or the same genre, you can knock it out. Places may not want to do it. I mean, look, we just got a pass on 40 Thieves because it was too close to Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I just saw the trailer for Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. And I understand what they're talking about. I
do too. And yet
the trailer, and yet at the same time, it's not the same movie at all.
Totally. We're already playing with a thiefy type heisty thing that has comedic elements in a fantasy world.
Where they put together a team in an Ocean's 11 style thing. Right. And you go, okay. We had things that people passed on when we took Final Fantasy out the first time, where they were like, we have things that are too similar. And it's like, basically they had a show with a female protagonist who had magic.
Totally. I mean, Wheel of Time, they felt too similar to Final Fantasy. And it's again, not in any meaningful way, but they went, oh, hang on.
Right. But I think the point is, you just never know. Yeah. The Hollywood gods will either shine upon you or not. You can't try. You can do your best to mitigate your risks by talking to your representation, finding out what's sold, watching the trades, being educated. I mean, we look at Deadline, we look at IMDb Pro. I know
there's also, again, what I find interesting is we used to use it all the time. Was done deal.
Yeah, done deal.
We sometimes have a deal that hasn't made it onto.
Yep. There are services like the tracking board. I don't find these services to be 100% accurate all the time, but at least it educates you a little as to who's got what out there.
It does. Yeah, tracking board's interesting, isn't it? It used to be the Scoggins report as well used to do what scripts were going out. Yeah. And you would go, oh, that's it. Okay, let me see what's going out. And occasionally you would be like, oh, that's our fucking idea.
Yeah. Oh, we've had so many ideas. Thankfully, only a few actual written pieces that we got fucked on. But so many ideas where we've been like, this would be awesome. And we quickly go and Google and look at all the websites and we're like, fuck, it was just done last month.
Yeah. Totally. So then there are some other aspects though too. Like, what if you actually pitched somewhere and 2 or 3 years later, a movie that was very similar to the one you pitched comes out? What does one do then?
Well, one can sue. And it happens all the time. And I know of a very specific example where that person had exactly what you're talking about and won, or at least won because they settled out of court, which is what a lot of times people will do to just not have an issue.
Yes, and it not be public, and there be a public ruling on it.
But with that, there has to be so much evidence.
Yeah, there does.
That it is undeniable that this place stole from you, or at least they don't want to be accused of stealing from you. The reality is they may not have. They may have just thought 6 months later in their subconscious, it'd be great, a movie about blank. And then they have a writer who wrote their own version. And as Jake said, you can't copyright an idea, but you can copyright the specific execution of the idea. And in the United States, you can basically sue for anything.
Sure. However, you also have to play this idea, don't you, about going, if I am a writer of any level, do I want to go out there in the world and cause a big ruckus and be known as difficult and be known as someone who is going to sue? That person will probably never work at that studio again.
No.
You have to weigh up the cost-benefit ratio of these things. That's not to say if a gross injustice has been done, you shouldn't fight it. I'm not suggesting that. I think if something has been really done and property has been stolen, then I think justice is the right thing that one should seek for. Because ultimately, you are being denied potentially enormous amounts of money. You're being denied not only your salary, but also residual payments and credit and all those things, which there are money.
If we had sent Winter's Night to Universal, and then a year later we saw that they were in development on the origin story of Santa Claus that was a Viking version, even if it was a totally different version, that is enough of a specific take that we would have had the right to sue. And the reality is, would we have worked for Universal again? That would be the cost benefit.
That would be.
However, would the other studios not work with us? I don't think so. I think the other studios would go, you know what? I read Winter's Night, and they're absolutely fucking right to sue.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But you do risk losing the ability to work for that studio. But then again, I will also say only as long as that studio is run by the same people and have the same business affairs department, which tends to change every about 5 years or so.
About 5 or 6 years. Yeah, I feel like all the people in the studios when we first worked in, generally.
Some of them are still there, but many of them have moved on to other positions at other places.
Yeah.
But you will, look, there, like you said, there is a cost benefit to things. And if you look and you go, this place stole my idea. I was in there and pitched them 10 years ago, and I wanted to do a movie about rainbows, and now they're doing a movie about rainbows.
Oh, the rainbow movie.
And you just go, dude, let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. Let it go.
I know. Yeah. and I think that ultimately is you go, shit, I had this, what I thought was an incredibly unique idea. Someone else has an incredibly unique idea that happens to be exactly the same as mine, and they got theirs made. And you go, that sucks. Good for them, and get on with your life.
Yeah. Actual intellectual property theft is important to defend.
Yes.
There's no question in my mind. You absolutely, I mean, it happens and it's wrong.
Yes.
But the idea that people have the same ideas and maybe there's an executive that happened to overlook and whatever, you got to weigh the future of your career.
Yeah.
And also, you may not be right.
So here's an interesting example from our own personal lives. We're friends with a couple of writers, and they had a script that did very well in certain Coverfly, competitions, etc. And we've been developing a movie that lives in an adjacent space.
Adjacent.
And we've been developing this with the producer for now about a year, 2 years.
2 years.
And recently he came to us and said, I want to develop it one more notch to be basically the same concept as our friend's movie, but told from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And it's like, And we actually told this to our friends. We're like, hey, just so you know, we know you have this script. We're being pushed with this idea that we have that was this, now to live much closer to what yours is. And this producer, I doubt, read that script.
No way. Not a chance. He has no idea.
You know,
he has no idea.
You know, and you go, that's an example of a good idea.
Yes. And the producer and our friends happen to have the same idea. And because they each came from it from a very different perspective. I mean, our producer took our original pitch, which was nothing like our friend's movie, and then said, but what if?
Yes.
And then it became like their movie. And I know we're being very kind of like, what's the word? Like not elusive or whatever.
Vague.
We don't vague because we don't want to like talk specifics. But the reality is, I think it's a good thing to acknowledge. Get upset, throw your computer at the wall, buy a new computer, and write a new script. That's what I told them.
Yeah, and that's it. And take comfort in this. You're in the ballpark of good ideas.
Yeah, that's true.
You're able to produce the kind of ideas that Hollywood wants to buy. And that's great. Yeah. That's actually validation. Although it's kind of, you know, a runner-up prize, you go, well, at least I'm having.
I know. At least I'm like in the zone.
We had a similar thing not that long ago. We came up with this brilliant idea, great idea. We pitched it to our manager, and our manager was like, "That's a great idea. That's exactly the same as this script that Derek Kolstad wrote 3 years ago and sold to YouTube Red and has just gotten back." Same idea. We were like, "Oh, we have good ideas."
Yeah, it does. It happens all the time. And it sucks. And I feel for everybody that goes through it.
For people. I do.
And I think you just have to know that you will go through it. Every writer will go through it. Every writer will read the trades one day and go, "No, my script just died." I remember we were taking out a script very early in our career before our first sale. It was called Beauty and the Beasts, plural. And it was a sequel reimagining to Beauty and the Beast. It wasn't even our idea. We were approached by a producer to write somebody else's idea, and we did, and it was a super fun script. And like 2 weeks before we were ready to go out, they announced that Guillermo del Toro was going to do Beauty and the Beast. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Now, he never ended up even making that movie.
Right.
But there were two that we had heard about, and we were like, fuck. And of course ours didn't sell. Because
they were all talking about that other one.
What are you gonna do? Anyway,
get a drink.
Good chat. Now hopefully nobody's gonna steal this.
There's someone writing this right now, basically.
Right now. Well, you know, it's funny. Craig Mazin said on our favorite other podcast with John and Craig, Script Notes. I remember him saying at one point, like, if you're worried about someone stealing your idea, you're just green. Because, like, you have to. You're not willing to share your ideas with people.
Yeah.
Then how are they ever going to get out there?
No, totally.
You know, like you have to be willing to go into a room with people you've just met 5 minutes ago and pitch them your very best ideas.
Yes.
And you're not going to have them sign an NDA.
I'm not going to have them sign an NDA. I'll tell you this, but you have to sign this paper. That's just not the way people.
And you don't know. You just met them. How are you supposed to trust them? Well, you just have to fucking trust.
Yeah, indeed.